One of the first shows to ever premiere on Disney Plus was The Mandalorian, and it ran for 3 seasons, and it is about a lone bounty hunter and his adventures across the galaxy. So, we're going to dive into the series known as The Mandalorian and help you decide whether or not it's the right one to watch as a Christian right now. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. The Mandalorian is rated TV 14, and we're going to dive into 5 convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus, any theological themes present within this series, and wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on it. Without further ado, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. And if you watch any sort of Star Wars project, this is very akin to those movies. And so there's blaster fire, space battles, there's use of different weapons like spears and swords and sabers and knives and things of that sort that are all part of it. There's explosion, fire, use of flamethrowers. There's even a rifle that like disintegrates people in this as well. There's electrocution. There is, like I mentioned, lots of space battles, lots of dogfights within this as well. There's just a lot of action and violence here within this series. It's a little bit above what we see in terms of just some of the other Star Wars films, but that is something to kind of keep in mind. There is also lots of hand-to-hand combat as well, and overall it's just a very action-heavy series. There also is some bit of gore, but not too crazy. Star Wars is meant for a general audience, so that is something to keep in mind, but it does deal with some cuts, scrapes, bruises, things of that sort. Fairly mild in terms of this in particular. It's still fairly moderate though in its action and its violence, so we are going to give it a 3 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is lust, and Star Wars does not dive into this category at all. It's going to be a 0 out of 5 here. Our next category is substances, and for the first 2 seasons, the most we see is a few references to some Star Wars specific drugs and some Star Wars specific beverages contained within the background of some of the different shots within the series. But in season 3, there's an episode in which some pirates are drinking out of like bigger jugs, and so they seem to move a little bit more looser, almost akin to Jack Sparrow. Not quite though.
Why is the rum always gone?
But that is also a part of the series as well. So to be on the safe side here, we are going to give this a 2 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is profanity, and there is a surprising amount here. Star Wars doesn't use a ton of language, but there is a little bit here. Hell is used, the A words used, and the DA words are all used. Most of the language comes in the second episode of the second season, The Passenger, where most of that is being used. And just to, once again, keep it on par and on theme here, we are going to give this a 3 out of 5 in this category. Our last category is intense/horror scenes. This is not a horror show by any way, shape, or form, so you're not going to deal with any horror-esque images. That being said, there are some darker moments with some lab and things of that sort, and bodies and tubes and things of that sort. Not like small tubes, like big tubes, because they're all together. So nothing, again, too creepy. If you do have arachnophobia, though, I would be cautious with this because, once again, in that second episode of season 2, there is some spider-esque creatures that are a part of this season, and it can get very creepy for those of you who are not a fan of any spider-esque things. And there are a few other monsters and stuff here within the series that can be a little creepier, things of that sort. The action here is very intense overall. There's a lot of moments that just, it is just kind of visceral, kind of darker, more intense action compared to, say, some of the other Star Wars projects. A little bit more akin to, I would say, Revenge of the Sith in terms of the intensity of its action. There also is some mild torture that's a part of this series as well. And there also is a couple prison breaks that do happen within this season. All of that to say, though, we are still going to give this a 3 out of 5 in this category. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be a 11 out of 25. It is just under that halfway point, but it's still fairly moderate in its profanity, its violence and gore, and its intensity. But it is pretty mild in its use of substances, and it's non-existent in its lust. But all of that to say, if anything we talked about compromises your convictions in any way, shape, or form, don't worry about watching The Mandalorian. No series, and in particular, this series may not be worth it if it compromises your convictions, because your convictions are God-given. So make sure to use them as they are there to help guide you towards Christ-likeness, which, as a follower of Jesus, is something we're all pursuing. That leads us beautifully into our next discussion as we dive into some theological themes that are present within The Mandalorian. And of course, as I've mentioned in the past and in some of my other Star Wars reviews, there is the overarching narrative of good versus evil, which of course is a theme and it's something that's presented within the Bible. But in terms of explicit Christianity, there is nothing here. Star Wars is set in a fictional universe, and as far as we know, Jesus does not exist within the Star Wars universe. So there is going to be really no explicit references to Jesus, the Bible, Christianity, the church. None of that is contained within The Mandalorian. That leads us into our last topic as we dive into my thoughts on The Mandalorian Seasons 1 through 3. And starting things off with Season 1, this is a very enjoyable season. It's very much a space western, which is a little bit different than what we've seen with Star Wars because a lot of it is more big grand scope, and this is very small, intimate, very narrow focused. It does have all the Star Wars-iness and things you expect, but it provides a unique twist both in its sound and also in its kind of look and feel, but it still fits right within the Star Wars universe and makes itself home within it. The story is a fairly simple adventure type story where it's going from place to place, mission to mission, job to job. And for some people that may not be their cup of tea, but for me, it's something that I think is fairly fun and enjoyable. There is an overarching narrative that we see in seasons 1 and 2, but it still has that sort of new place, new mission sort of feel to it, and it is overall nice. We get introduced to a lot of new characters in this season, and they are very enjoyable. The Mandalorian himself is great. Grief Karga's fun. IG-11's solid. Overall, a lot of great characters, a lot of fun moments, a few really neat surprises, and things overall to enjoy with this season. Which does lead me into Season 2, which for the most part, sometimes with shows, it starts off really well and then it continues to dip, or sometimes it starts off really well and then it shoots to the moon. This one, with this season, it remains fairly consistent. And while I will admit this one is a bit more grander, as it does connect a lot more to the overall Star Wars universe, with bringing in characters from the original trilogy and Clone Wars and Rebels and things of that sort, it does still feel fairly small, as the story is about the child and the Mandalorian, and it is still overall nice to see, even though it does bring in a lot of cameos and appearances by characters we know and love. All these still fit and focus towards that greater narrative of this Season 2. There is a few things here that I'm not overall crazy about, as there can be some forgetfulness with this season compared to Season 1, but there is just a lot here to really enjoy. In particular, that final episode is just fantastic. Also, I do want to specifically say that Moff Gideon, in general, is a really strong, fantastic villain. Giancarlo Esposito does a fantastic job there. But again, that final episode, without giving away spoilers, that final episode is just fantastic because it's one of those things of a kind of childhood dream come true for a lot of Star Wars fans, myself included. Getting to see certain things happen is just awesome to witness, and it comes to a very emotional conclusion, and it's very enjoyable and is one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV we've gotten, is that final episode of Season 2. So I thoroughly enjoy this season, but for me, both of these seasons are fairly equal, and in fact they are so equal that they're both being rated an 8.7 out of 10. That was not planned when I went to go rewatch these seasons, but here we are. Both of them are an 8.7 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoy it, but that leads into the final season. And this final season is very, very frustrating, namely because of the fact that it just doesn't feel like the same series. It goes from a smaller, more intimate scope, and it goes even broader, even bigger, and that is pretty crazy and very much a shock. It's very disappointing because it just doesn't feel like the same series. The pacing's off. A lot of the episodes in this season are just very lackluster. There's one episode that is just outright just mid. It's just very not good. And a lot of the major plot points and things that happen, like Grogu's return or the N1 and some of those things, happen in a different. And overall, it's just very disappointing. So this season is going to be a 7.1 out of 10. And overall, that's my thoughts on The Mandalorian seasons 1 through 3. I enjoy seasons 1 and 2, but season 3 is fairly lackluster. So those are my thoughts on The Mandalorian seasons. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things about those Mandalorian seasons 1 through 3 in the comments. And while you're down there, consider hitting that like, subscribing for us, joining our community here on YouTube. Just helps to send us out into that algorithm, allows us to reach more Christians to help them utilize their convictions. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us. Before you go, there's a few video recommendations over here that YouTube is suggesting to you. I have no idea what they've picked, but it's specifically for you. So we'll see you all in the next one.